In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Another surgery today for Jacob Blake, the black man shot 7 times by a Kenosha, Wisconsin police officer on Sunday. Today there was a news conference that took place where his family and attorney Ben Crump spoke. Attorney Crump laid out how severe the injuries are against that Jacob Blake actually suffered.
Family is very faithful and they believe in miracles. But the medical diagnosis right now is that he is paralyzed. And because those bullets severed his spinal cord and shattered some of his vertebrae that Attorney Salvi will get to in more detail, it is going to take a miracle. It is going to take a miracle for Jacob Blake Jr. to ever walk again. He is currently in surgery as we speak, still struggling to sustain his life and to hopefully become some resemblance of the man he once was.
Folks, it was just shocking to hear that. The father of Jacob Blake said that his son has a number of holes in his body. Also, what took place at that news conference, Ben Crump talked about how portions of his colon and intestines had to be removed because of the injuries that he suffered. The sister of Jacob Blake gave a raw and emotional news conference.
My brother's keeper. And when you say the name Jacob Blake, make sure you say father, make sure you say cousin, make sure you say son, make sure you say uncle, but most importantly, make sure you say human. Human life. Let it marinate in your mouth, in your minds. A human life. Just like every single one of y'all and everywhere else, we're human. And his life matters. So many people have reached out to me telling me they're sorry that this happened to my family. Well, don't be sorry, because this has been happening to my family for a long time. Longer than I can account for. It happened to Emmett Till. Emmett Till is my family. Philando, Mike Brown, Sandra. This has been happening to my family. And I've shared tears for every single one of these people that it's happened to. This is nothing new. I'm not sad. I'm not sorry. I'm angry. And I'm tired. I haven't cried one time. I stopped crying years ago. I am numb. I have been watching police murder people that look like me for years. I'm also a Black History minor. So not only have I been watching it in the 30 years that I've been on this planet, but I've been watching it for years before we were even alive. I'm not sad. I don't want your pity. I want change.
Thank you.
Again, that was the sister of Jacob Blake who was speaking. Jacob Blake's mother, Julia Jackson, also quite emotional. Well, she also says she's praying for the police officers. Watch this.
My son has been fighting for his life.
Can you talk a little louder?
And we really just need prayers. As I was riding through here
through the city, I noticed a lot of damage. It doesn't reflect my son or my family. If Jacob knew what was going on as far as that goes, the violence and the destruction, he would be very unpleased. So I'm really asking and encouraging everyone in Wisconsin and abroad to take a moment and examine your hearts. Citizens, police officers, firemen, clergy, politicians, do Jacob justice on this level and examine your hearts.
Yes.
We need healing. As I pray for my son's healing, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, I also have been praying even before this for the healing of our country.
Yes.
God has placed each and every one of us in this country because he wanted us to be here. Clearly you can see by now that I have beautiful brown skin, but take a look at your hand, and whatever shade it is beautiful as well.
Amen. Yes.
How dare we hate what we are? We are humans. God did not make one type of tree or flower or fish or horse or grass or rock. How dare you ask him to make one type of human that looks just like you?
Wow.
I'm not talking to just Caucasian people. I am talking to everyone. White, black, Japanese, Chinese, red, brown. No one is superior to the other.
Right.
The only supreme being is God himself. Please, let's begin to pray for healing for our nation. We are the United States. Have we been united? Do you understand what's going to happen when we fall? Because a house that is against each other cannot stand.
Amen.
To all of the police officers, I'm praying for you and your families. To all of the citizens, my black and brown sisters and brothers, I'm praying for you. I believe that you are an intelligent being just like the rest of us. Everybody. Let's use our hearts, our love, and our intelligence to work together to show the rest of the world how humans are supposed to treat each other. America is great when we behave greatly. Thank you.
Again, that was Julia Jackson. That is the mother of Jacob Blake. It was quite an emotional news conference when the Blake family spoke. It was very difficult. This is Jacob Blake's father.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out in support of my son with this senseless attempted murder that was committed on him. They shot my son 7 times. 7. Like he didn't matter. But my son matters. He's a human being and he matters.
Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers has declared a state of emergency after some protesters vandalized businesses and set dozens of buildings on fire. There also was a particular Department of Corrections there in Wisconsin that was set on fire, and they actually, a building crumbled and they actually razed that building. I think we have the video, folks. If you have it, go ahead and pull that video up, please, that shows this was some video that was actually shot by a reporter. This was the video before they actually took it down. Do y'all have the video? Thank you very much. All right, there you go. So that's the video right there. This was shot by Vi Nguyen, the Wisconsin Department of Corrections building. This is her tweet. The Wisconsin Department of Corrections building was set on fire during the second night of unrest in Kenosha, reduced to rubble and ashes. The video was recorded before bulldozers were brought in. This is CBS Chicago. You see spray painted outside. Are you listening yet? This story, of course, has attracted so much attention. The Detroit Lions are among those showing their support. They canceled their practice today after safety Deron Harris said football is not important today. Please show those. This is them speaking about that very issue.
Football is not important today. We have a platform that we're able to use to not only raise awareness, but to create change. And we decided today that we was going to step forward and we was going to create change.
We can't be silent. We can't stay silent. It cannot be what's going on throughout our regular day. So today, unified, we stand here and we came up with these words, these slogans, and we're here to spread the message, spread the word.
We've been able to have some really real conversations as a team. And I've been fortunate to be in a locker room with white, black, brown, different socioeconomic backgrounds, guys from all over the country. And they're guys I care about. I go to battle against Trey every single day. Hell of a guy, stand-up guy. And just to hear the pain and the fear, the people that I care about, the people that I love, are going through, it's not okay. And I know it's not my reality, but they shouldn't have to go through that. They shouldn't have to have that fear.
LeBron James of the Los Angeles Lakers also speaking out of the shooting of Jacob Blake.
Tanya Ganguly? George Floyd was asked today about the situation, and he said, he was asked, what can you do for more?
Say that again?
He was asked, what can you do for more to help? And he said, we can't do anything. We shouldn't even come downstairs. I wonder, I know your thoughts on that have been a little bit different. I wonder what your reaction to that is. What do you think about that situation?
No, I don't have any reaction to George Hill's comment. Everyone has their opinion to, in reaction to what happened. What I can say is that if you're sitting here telling me that there was no way to subdue that gentleman or detain him or to just, before the firing of guns, then you're sitting here, you're lying to not only me, you're lying to every African American, every black person in the community. Because we see it over and over and over. There was multiple, if you watch the video, there was multiple moments where if they wanted to, they could have tackled him. They could have grabbed him. You know, they could have done that. And why does it always have to get to a point where we see the guns firing and his family is there, the kids are there, it's in broad daylight, And who knows? I mean, if that video is not being taken by that person across the street, do we even know if we even see that video? There's like talks about that the cops didn't even have their body cams on. That's a possibility. But it's just, quite frankly, it's just fucked up in our community. And us, I know people get tired of hearing me say it, but we are scared as black people in America. Black men, black women, black kids, we are terrified. Because you don't know. You have no idea. You have no idea.
Folks, again, tremendous amount of reaction taking place all across the country. Jacob Blake had surgery today. Again, when you listen to what the family had to say about the wounds he has suffered, having his intestines and colon removed as a result, one of the attorneys also stood there, talked about what he is going to have to endure, the kind of resources that are going to be needed to care for his health. 29 years old. One of the attorneys said, look, he's got a whole lot of life ahead of him, but he is going to have a very long road of recovery. He is not out of the woods yet. The family made that perfectly clear that he has a number of surgeries that he is going to have to endure in order to get beyond this, in order to heal. They are asking for prayers. A GoFundMe account that was set up for Jacob Blake surpassed $1 million. Surpassed $1 million in just one day. But again, you can expect a significant civil lawsuit against this police department without a doubt. I want to bring in my panel today to join me right now. Joining me is Malik Abdul, Republican strategist, Brianna Cartwright, political strategist, Michael Brown, former vice chair of the DNC Finance Committee. Brianna, first of all, you a newbie, first time on the show, so welcome. I'll start with you. When you look at this, again, you saw the Republican convention last night. Folks are talking about looting and burning of buildings, things along those lines. This is what black people keep saying. All right, when the hell do you give a damn about the actual life versus a building that's being burned down? This man is shot 7 times at close range in his back, spine severed. Back shattered, removed his intestines and colon. The dad described holes in his son's body.
Yeah, it's very tragic. I don't think that we should ever think about replacement of buildings because you can't replace a life. It's very disappointing that people are even caring at all about the buildings. I think that we might need to go a step further. It might be radical enough to say, but, I think if enough, I was there in the aftermath of Ferguson and saw, a lot of the destruction there. And, it's been years since Ferguson and we're still doing this fight. And we're caring about, building the buildings, but what about building our nation, right? And so I find it very interesting that dialogue keeps going and going. But I mean, on the radical side, people can say that maybe we need to fight harder in that, in the sense of every single time you decide that you want to wrongfully kill a human being and Black lives don't matter to you, that they might matter because there's going to be an economic backlash. And that you're going to have to deal with it. I think that concentrating on the buildings misses the mark and just allows them to not talk and focus on the real issue that we've been having in America for years.
Mike Brown, when you see this again, when you look at the anger and the frustration that's coming from people, the folks are there, what they're saying is that, wait a minute, and to LeBron's point, if that neighbor across the street does not shoot this video, all we have is a police officer's interpretation and witnesses, because they voted a couple of years ago to get body cameras in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They won't be added until 2022, till next year.
Correct. And so thank goodness for technology. But Roland, you and I have had, I don't know how many countless conversations. Obviously, our hearts go out to the family and to the community. But, it's becoming more than that. As a former legislator, it was 19 seconds from at least what we saw on the video from when he was chasing the gentleman to his car, to his vehicle. Whether he could have tased him, whether he could have tackled him, there are a variety of ways to subdue this particular gentleman besides obviously shooting him 7 times in the back when he was unarmed. But until you deal with the legislation and the laws about what protect police officers, these shootings are going to continue. Because in those 19 seconds, if the laws were different and his pension was on the line, if he was going to have to pay for his own legal fees, if he or she, because obviously it could be a woman police officer too, did not have immunity, in those 19 seconds, he may have said, wait a minute, maybe I should tase this guy. Or maybe I should get my uniform dirty and tackle him. But I'm not going to shoot him because I'm not protected anymore. This wasn't a bang-bang situation. It was 19 seconds. He had a chance to think about it, and he still chose to shoot 7 times into an unarmed black man's back.
This is some more of that news conference. And I just want you to listen again to one of the other attorneys before we go to Malik as he talks about the long road that Jacob Blake has to now face.
We're here from Attorney B. Ivory Lamar to give updates.
Thank you, Ben. My name is Patrick Salvi Jr., a lawyer at the office of Salvi, Shostak, and Pritchard in Chicago. As you've heard and as you can imagine, when at least 7, as many as 8 bullets from point-blank range enter the human body and shred through the tissue of the human body, that can cause, and did in this case, severe and likely permanent injury. Miraculously, because I imagine you've all seen the video, Jacob is alive. And I cannot tell you how pleased we were, how full our hearts were when Julia came back from visiting with him and actually told us that he told her a joke. And so that was tremendous news. But let me go through some of the injuries that Jacob suffered. Mr. Crump is correct. He had a bullet go through some or all of his spinal cord, at least 1 bullet. He has holes in his stomach. He had to have nearly his entire colon and small intestines removed. He suffered damage to his kidney and liver and was also shot in the arm. And so Jacob has a long road ahead of him. A lot of rehabilitation. You heard he's in surgery right now, and it is not going to be his last surgery. So he has a long road to recovery. We are going to hope and pray for as good of a recovery as we can possibly get. Jacob is going to fight hard, no doubt about it, with the support of his wonderful family that you see behind me. But that type of rehabilitation and recovery, it's not free. And so part of what we need to do on Jacob's behalf in light of the travesty that happened on Sunday is we have to bring a civil lawsuit. And we're going to be doing that, among other things, to accomplish several goals. One is, of course, to hold the wrongdoers accountable for this injustice. The second is to get Jacob the resources that he will need. He's a young man. He's got decades of life ahead of him. And what he needs now and what the civil justice system provides for under these circumstances is the best possible medical care to absolutely maximize his recovery. So we're going to fight for him for that. And then, of course, finally, the fact that due process under the law, something that Jacob was not afforded in that situation, clearly. And that dignity and humanity and compassion, which is how policing ought to be practiced in this country, that it be applied to Jacob no different than it is applied to me. Because we can all wonder that if all else being equal, would I have been treated that way? So those are the things we're going to fight for. Now I'll pass it back to Mr. Crump and Mr. Lamar.
Malik, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is another tragic situation that we've seen for far too many years now. The mother herself, I thought her comments were beautiful, reminded me of the family down, what was that, Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, after Dylan Roof shot up that church. It's a talk of forgiveness and really prayer, and I think that's a lot of what we need also, in addition to finding out what happened. It's so unfortunate that this is one of those situations, and we talk about it all the time, as far as things happening at the local level. As you said, there was the mayor, the city decided to postpone this. They wasn't fully funding the idea of body cams until 2022. You know, that's tragic in and of itself. If we had body cams, and it doesn't matter, yes, the mayor is a Democrat, but it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican. The fact is that if we had a body cam, we would have at least, if they were on, I should say that too, if the body cams were in use, then we would have known what happened. What was that scuffle that happened prior to him walking around to the car? Why did he decide to walk around to the car? Even after the scuffle, and what we saw because there were two videos, even after the scuffle, and I totally agree with LeBron, they had plenty of opportunities to subdue him. You can't tell me that you scuffle with someone, then you allow, and you saw they essentially just kind of walked calmly with their guns pulled, following him to the other side of the car. They could have subdued him. For tased aside, they could have tackled him. There's so many things that they could have done that they chose not to do. And you see the guy grabbing his T-shirt and all of that type of nonsense, and then you still shoot him. So obviously they had the opportunity to subdue him, and they chose not to. And I expect that this is something that's definitely going to be fully investigated. I don't agree, and I'll push back just a little. The people who did the burning, those were rioters. Those weren't protesters, and I think we do ourselves a disservice if we conflate the two. Those people were rioters. They were not protesters.
Here's the deal.
There are peaceful protesters that are always out in these type of events, and then you have rioters who come and then they just tear the whole thing up, and then you have this discussion about whether or not we should be able to criticize people who riot or whatever.
No,
I don't agree with the burning of the
first of all, no one said here they can't be criticized. But what I will say is when people immediately jump to as Cartwright said, they jump to the issue of the building and completely overlook what caused that reaction. Folks weren't setting anything on fire on Saturday. They weren't setting anything on fire at noon on Sunday. It was a reaction to what took place, the shooting of Jacob Blake. Brenna, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that, it's unfair there is truth, right? There's a difference between a protest and a riot. But, just as Roland said, let's talk about how a protest turns into a riot, right? Just like the same thing as an arrest turns into a murder. Like, it should be different. There shouldn't be murders when you're being arrested, because in the fact of how we have our laws set up, You know, you get arrested, the officer writes down what they think you're arrested for, and then you go through prosecution, whether or not there's going to be charges or not, and then you have your arraignment, and then you have a jury. And so, like, having an officer be the judge, jury, and executioner is wrong. And so, I mean, you know, to talk about the buildings and everything else and not talk about the issue in itself is very problematic.
Also, Michael, look, here's the deal. And I think the sister of Jacob Blake said it best. Black people, we have to constantly have a public display of grief. And we have to call for calm. We have to respond a certain way. Something happened to white folks, they get to be pissed off. I mean, white folks are still mad after 9/11. And I got Melik's point about Mother Emanuel, but no, I'm perfectly fine, Michael, if black people say, I'm not forgiving a damn thing. That I'm so pissed off that we're having to be at this particular point and going to express that. And I just think white America too often they desire black folks to instantly forgive, as opposed to, no, fix the damn problem.
And it goes back clearly, 420 some odd years when families were being broken up and the mother kept things calm and kept the families together, no matter how tragic, no matter how awful, no matter how despicable the white folks, in that case, the masters, the slave owners, treated us. And it's still coming up. What Miss Blake, I'm assuming her last name is Blake, what Miss Blake did today is showing what God and love and peace and calm means when it comes from a victim's family. But Roland, you're exactly right. We're the ones that always have to do that. Why aren't the police unions coming out and saying, you know what, this is giving us a bad name? I'm tired of hearing, there are a couple bad apples. No, it's a system issue. Until you correct the system, it's going to continue. So yes, are there good police officers? Of course there are. They're more good than bad. But there's a system in place which protects them. And until the police unions sound like Mrs. Blake did, again, these terrible, terrible, terrible things are going to continue to happen.
Well, and again, we'll see what the next step is. And again, a lot of leeway given to these officers. They are on administrative leave. And so we'll see what the next step is. Back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.